You're listening to SM Media, the #1 place for exclusive content.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Scottish Football Show right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always. Joined as always by Mark Wilson. Mark, how are we doing?
Fine, thanks, Scott. Glad to get back into the routine of Sunday nights, discussing the events of Scottish football. Although I'm missing Shankers this week, but I understand his rationale for not being on today.
Yeah, well, obviously wondering where Shankers is, but we're no surprise. Rory Loy's with us as well. Rory, how are we doing this week?
Yes, all good. Can't complain. Enjoyed the game of the day and look forward to the show.
Brilliant. We'll make a wee start. We'll touch on, first of all, obviously, Thursday night with the incident with Glenn Kamara. It was just on behalf of SM Media, we're just going to say we stand with Glenn Kamara. What's your thoughts, Wilson, you getting to add in this situation? It's obviously been a situation that's been the talking point of the weekend.
I mean, I think everything's been said by folk more highly qualified than me, and as I always say, and as I say to other adults, obviously kids don't understand, but sometimes I just look and think it's 2021 and these things are still happening, and it's bizarre in the first place. But the bit that kind of, and I know things can be said on a football pitch of an unsavoury nature, but it's the calculation of the hands over the mouth so he doesn't get caught, which makes it a wee bit more premeditated, a wee bit more evil in the whole thing. But we need to wait and see the scenario. But again, I know we had a wee chat, I don't know if it was on social media or on our own channel, but I would 100% be kicking him out of the competition. I have absolutely no qualms about that. And I know a lot of Rangers fans have been on saying, no, they beat us fair and square. And that's, everyone's entitled to their opinion. If that was, a section of their support, then the club can't control that to a certain extent. But that's the club captain. That is the club captain with players of a different race in his own team. And you could see the shock and horror in their faces also, which made it even worse. But as I say, so I'd be for putting them out of the competition in all honesty, or selling the guy and getting rid of him. No one will touch him now, certainly, but for that club's point of view.
Yeah, Rory, what was your thoughts on the whole situation?
I definitely echo what Wilson says there. I don't think, there needs to be a full investigation, and the reason for that is, the evidence is there for everyone to see. Investigations are usually there to basically come to a conclusion, to give UEFA grounds to go on and then exact a punishment which fits the crime. But the evidence is there for everyone to see. The reaction of Glenn Kamara, the covering of the mouth, everyone can see that, and it was disgusting. There's no doubt about that. Now, what I hope happens from this point moving forward is that they investigate it fully. They come to the conclusion that racist language was used, which is clear to see. And I couldn't agree with Wilson more. The action on the back of that has to be that they're omitted for the tournament, that they're kicked out. Not with Rangers coming back in, but with Arsenal getting a bye. And I think if you were to speak to any of the other clubs, would they be against Arsenal getting a bye on the basis of what happened on Thursday night? I don't think they would be. I think that would send out a strong message, and I think it would stop any further action moving forward. And as Wilson says, as a captain and as an ex-player myself, you used to get told all the time, never mind on the pitch, you represent the club when you're off the pitch, when you're out and about in your daily business. You're looked at upon in your town or your city or wherever you play as a representative of the football club. So to do that in front of cameras in a European competition, it's nothing short of disgraceful. And I really hope that the punishment that they dish out is just, and hopefully they get kicked out. I would ban them from next year's tournament as well. And I would be saying, look, this is the precedent moving forward. If this happens and it's proven to have happened, which, let's be honest, it's going to be a matter of time before that's proven, you'll be kicked out of the tournament, you'll be banned for a year, and any individual punishment, you can impose what you want there, but punish the team as a whole, because I'm telling you now, that team are capable of beating Arsenal, and they're capable of winning that tournament, and taking that opportunity away from them will hurt them more than anything.
Yeah, definitely. Couldn't agree with both of you more. But we'll move on to the results over the weekend. We'll start off with the big one, the Old Firm derby. Finished 1-1. El Yunusi gave Celtic the lead, and Rangers get an equaliser through Alfredo Morelos, his first goal in an Old Firm derby. Rory, it wasn't the best Old Firm games you'll ever see, but it was probably a result that was probably fair. Would you agree with that?
I would say so. I would say that if there was any team who did deserve to win it, it would have been Celtic. I think that they played the better stuff. I thought that the link-up play between the two forwards was exceptional at times. As a Rangers fan, obviously I want to see Rangers doing well, but I think for that game, Celtic scoring was the best thing that could have happened. Anybody scoring, the first 20 minutes was the worst standard of Old Firm football that I've seen in my lifetime. It was boring. There was no tempo. There was no pressing. It was a pre-season game. It needed a goal. I do think if that goal hadn't came, we were in a serious trouble of that going on for 90 minutes. So I think the goal brought the game to life. Rangers scored soon after it. A draw. I don't think anyone's turning around going, that's outrageous. It was a draw, but I think on the day, if any team did deserve to win it, it would have been Celtic. I was really impressed with some of the link-up play and some of especially the triangles that they played in, and the way they moved the ball about. Rangers did look a threat on the counter. Celtic looked so vulnerable at set pieces, as they always do. But on the whole, I think a draw was probably fair, but Celtic just shaded it for me.
Yeah, I would go along with that. Wilson, what was your thoughts on the game?
It was. I think it's always a non-event when there's no supporters there. I think that obviously builds an Old Firm game up. In terms of the game, lacking real any quality. I think individually, I thought, especially the last 10 minutes, I thought Rangers looked as if they could, rip them up a couple of times. I thought John Kennedy, team selection and what was basically, don't lose the game. I felt Celtic could have went for it a wee bit more after they scored. I felt a wee bit on top, etc. But as Rory said, they're so vulnerable at the back that I think the midfield are scared to push up that wee bit further, because of the gaps in behind them. I thought John Joe Kenny was going to be in for a hard afternoon. I thought Kent was going on the ball first 10 minutes and going at him. I remember he did the same to Lustig one game at Ibrox, and Lustig come off because Kenny get past him a few times, but it was pretty uneventful. But again, obviously, Bobby Madden spoke to Willie Collum last night just to make sure, nothing amiss happens during the game. And it wasn't just the penalty; the penalty split down the middle. Even the pundits couldn't decide when you're watching it on TV. But I even felt, and I don't know if you remember.
What was your take on the penalty, Wilson? Did you think it was a penalty?
In real time, I think it's a stonewaller. But and again, I know I like to criticise the referees. The replays are very inconclusive, and then you always hear on the media programmes, if you're not 100% certain that it's a penalty, you don't give it. Now, I'm quite sure in real time, Willie Collins probably 80-90% thinking that's a penalty, but it's not 100. And as I say, it's a big one. It's a big one to give. Although the game doesn't in effect necessarily matter. But if you go back, to other games, remember the Kurt Broadfoot one at Parkhead. He couldn't wait to give that one. And I felt in the real time it was a stonewaller. Now it's different if you get VAR and you go to VAR, then he changes his mind. That's absolutely fine. But to be fair, I think it was Pat Bonner on the radio. Made a good point saying only El Yunusi claimed for it. Like Scott Brown, I think Laxalt was also in the box. That an ordinary Old Firm game, and not that I'm condoning this, you'd be chasing after the referee. So if Scott Brown is chasing after the referee, then he's probably thinking, it's not a penalty. But what I was going to say again, and I thought Colum again, he's so nitpicky, but at one each, I think both teams were relatively happy with that as such. But there was a couple of occasions down the far side, he could have easily given a free kick to Rangers in the 92nd minute to put a ball in the box, but he gave the free kick to Celtic. And then 20 seconds later, down the opposite side of the pitch, it was a free kick to Celtic. We gave it to Rangers just to try and, play out the draw as such so he doesn't get any criticism. Whereas, in my opinion, they were both free kicks for the opposite team. But does Willie Collum want to be refereeing the game when Rangers or Celtic score the last minute winner? So I thought it was a good few decisions he was very strange about. There wasn't really any, flashpoints in terms of red cards or that either, which is always disappointing for the neutral. But again, I think it's the right thing. Scotland did the right thing prior to the game in the warm up, but I definitely think that possibly took a wee bit of sting out of it as well. But Celtic have big problems for me in the summer, or from now. I don't think the fella Dominic Mackay, I don't think he understands or realises how big these problems are going to be. Now he might be, very astute and be able to remedy these, but looking at that today, you would keep, and based on that performance today, you would keep Ayer and Callum McGregor. The rest could go. Now, David Turnbull...
Edward was the best player on the pitch.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think so. I just didn't think so. I actually thought... I thought Ryan Kent started well, but I never thought for 1 minute that Goldson was under any sort of pressure in the whole game. The goal, I think...
Goldson and Balogun were Rangers' worst players for 45 minutes.
I thought
Goldson wasn't under any pressure the whole game for me. I'm not saying he strolled or anything, but Alan McGregor was man of the match. Alan McGregor was man of the match again.
But me and you played that left-hand side.
As he is nearly most games Rangers play, to be fair. But as I say, Bain, Laxalt, the boy Welsh might come on, Turnbull may come onto a game. And I saw a lot of Celtic fans screaming and shouting for David Turnbull in the Scotland squad. David Turnbull's done really well for Celtic in terms of playing against Kilmarnock, Dundee United's, Motherwells, etc. But I didn't think the Rangers' three in midfield were class today. So Turnbull, you think, well, maybe dominate them today. But again, Davis and Kamara were under no pressure all game. And they're shouting for Turnbull for the Scotland squad and Billy Gilmour. That's where Scotland are top heavy with very good midfielders, and Jack and Armstrong and McGinn and these guys. So again, it's a big game, and I always feel Turnbull's always the one that's kind of unlucky and gets subbed off. But I didn't think him, and I don't know what's happened to Ryan Christie in a Celtic shirt. He's been very, very poor this season for a guy that I think is a very talented player, but very poor. So as I say, I think Ayer will go. I think somebody will buy Ayer. I think he's very good.
I think he's a good ball player. I think he's a good ball player, but see at the set piece, I just thought, I think they're so exposed at set pieces, as you said, and it was apparent. But I think the kind of left side, Rangers' right side, was very poor this afternoon.
To say that Goldson strolled the game, but McGregor was man of the match, for me is a bit contradictory. I thought that Balogun really struggled.
Yeah, and he was a shocker.
Wasn't he on the ball? It wasn't anything to do with that. It was positional. He's not a right back. He doesn't know where to be. He doesn't know how to turn his body. He doesn't know when to open up. He doesn't know when to close his body. He was caught out a good few times. Ryan Christie played a lovely little ball over the top of Goldson. Balogun was caught on his heels, and a better touch from, not quite sure who it was, possibly Turnbull, Edward, I'm not quite sure, could have led to a goal. Goldson, for me, should be helping him out in that position, and that goes to show that without a natural right back there, Rangers, how much they struggled. I thought they really exploited that right-hand side of Rangers. So McGregor was man of the match. Balogun, for me, should have been off at half-time, never mind. And that's not really a slight against Balogun. He's not a right back. I've been there where I've played left wing when I'm or left midfield when I'm a striker. It's not enjoyable because you're trying to do a job for the team, but it's not natural to you. So I do understand why he was taken off early, but
why did Patterson not start, Rory?
I think that it was his poorest.
It's not. I mean, he's a very talented boy. It's not as if the occasion was going to get to him. It's not an occasion.
I thought it was his poorest game on Thursday night. That he get knocked out, and I just think on the back of that, maybe he was looking for a little bit more. I hate using this term because it's a bit of a cliche, but maybe possibly a little bit more experience. I think that Slavia Prague also played on the diagonal in terms of playing everything up over his head. So I think maybe they wanted to go with a little bit more height, a little bit more strength, but I think it backfired because I think Celtic exploited that really well. Edward spotted it early doors, was running in behind. Goldson, for me, should have been communicating more with Balogun. I thought those two really struggled. When Patterson came on, gave a lot more natural balance to the back four. Goldson looked a lot more comfortable, and from that point on, it went from probably Celtic being the better team for it to I thought it was end-to-end in the second half. When I say that, I don't mean end-to-end as in chances at both ends, but the balance of play was very, very even in the second half. And for me, Patterson was part of that and adding more balance there. But I just think over the piece, I kind of touched on it in my prediction there. I don't want to bring that up, you know what I mean? I thought first half Rangers looked emotionally drained. They looked physically drained.
I thought that as well.
They looked tired. They just didn't look like a team who were taking part in an Old Firm derby. And I think Celtic's vulnerability would show at some point, and that's kind of why I went for the draw there, where I thought Celtic would come out all guns blazing. They probably didn't, to be fair, but I thought over the piece it would be a bit of a dull game. And normally, even 0-0s with Old Firms are feisty, but that was, I started clearing the house after about 60 minutes. I was bored at my tree. I didn't enjoy it, I have to say. And I don't know if it's, and it probably is the fans, to be fair, because I've watched many Old Firms over the last 4 years where they are pointless, but there's fans in the stadium, and Celtic are clear by 15 points, but the fans still give that edge. And when, Arfield scores that goal in a meaningless Old Firm, there's still that buzz. Everybody's, cheering, everyone's watching it, everybody's in tune with it. Whereas this time for me, without the fans there, with it being a drab, pointless game, it turned into a drab, pointless viewing spectacle.
Did the omission of Patterson highlight Gerrard's naivety that he's maybe not ready to manage at a big club?
I think by Gerrard's own admission, he's no there yet. And on a serious note, I think I've listened to Gerrard's interviews, and you'll hear him say himself tactically he's no there yet. He's still learning, but he's there enough to be 20 points clear, which is enough in the job he's in at the moment.
I was being flippant, Rory.
I know you were.
Really?
I was me.
Brilliant. We'll move on to a result at the bottom of the table. Kilmarnock 4, Motherwell 1. Lafferty, Mackenzie, Burke and Pinnock with the goals. A big result for Kilmarnock. Wilson, is that the relegation survival fight starting there? Or
absolutely, aye. Kelly, I said before that they found themselves in a situation with games against and all that. Kelly will finish 10th. I don't think Kelly will lose in the bottom 6 games. A few draws here and there, but a couple of wins. As I say, and this is what I was looking at when I was watching Sports Scene this morning. I'm looking at the likes of Kyle Lafferty and Chris Burke. Very experienced, been the course before, played for big teams in big games. I don't see that in the Hamilton Accies team lineup, and I don't see it in the Ross County team lineup. And it just takes that one player of a bit of quality that'll get you out situations like that. And as I say, albeit Kyle Lafferty's goal, I think Liam Kelly might not be happy that went in. But as I say, when you've got a squad and the likes of Lafferty and Burke in it with that kind of experience and that kind of ability as well, I think Kelly will be absolutely fine. It was a great result. Really good goal from the boy Pinnock as well at the end. But as I say, again, there's 3. I know there's 3 teams, but Motherwell don't look too clever now. I don't know if they're short of confidence or what, but losing 4-1 to Kilmarnock, that could. And they'll still have to play Hamilton again, who they've got a really poor record against them. I know they're maybe 5 or 6 points in front of Ross County, but I still think it'll be Ross County that go down and Hamilton in the playoffs.
Rory, one player that stood out to me yesterday was Rory Mackenzie playing behind Kyle Lafferty. Do you think Kilmarnock do have that kind of spark now? Do you think that result could massively help them in the fight for survival?
Aye, absolutely. I mean, you put it in the chat yesterday. Who's going to come out on top in the Kelly Motherwell game? And I think me and Wilson both said it would be a home win. I think they've got enough quality in their squad to stay up, and Rory Mackenzie's a part of that. He's a clever player. He's a good player, and as Wilson touched on there, I don't think Hamilton have got a Rory Mackenzie or that type of player, or Kyle Lafferty that's going to pop up with these moments. And I do agree with Wilson. I think they'll be okay. I think they might need to do it through the playoffs. I don't know if they'll finish 10th. My fear is that I agree with what Wilson's saying over the course of maybe, 15 games. But ultimately, Kilmarnock might need to go to Hamilton. If that game was on tomorrow and you were to put that to us, who's going to win that game? Hamilton at home to Kilmarnock? I think it's a coin flip. I really do. Regardless of the extra quality Kilmarnock maybe have. And if Kilmarnock were to lose that fixture, Hamilton have enough then for me to pick up enough points to go and be okay. So I do agree with what Wilson's saying overall, but I think they've left it too late. And I think that with 6 games to go, I think they'll finish 11th, and I think they'll stay up through the playoffs. And I think that's down to maybe just chance on the off chance that they draw Hamilton away and maybe lose 1-0 or 2-1 and a scrappy game on a terrible Astro Park. I think that might work against them. But if the fixtures are kind to them, they get Hamilton at their place, that works in their favour, because I would like to see them finish 10th. I personally think they'll finish 11th. I think Hamilton will finish 10th. And I think Kilmarnock will stay up, but I think it'll be through the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. We'll move on to the top 6 fight. That was ended St Johnstone. Wilson, massive achievement for them to get top 6, considering the fact you had them relegated in December. How big an achievement for that is this for Callum Davidson?
Well, yeah, I put my hands up. Yeah, they were my tip to go down this season. But it's a massive achievement. You saw the celebrations yesterday of getting there, and I think they still kind of just appeared in that position in the league without anyone actually noticing, picking up 1-0s against Hibs and then 1-0 again against Ross County yesterday, and they have done very well. Won a trophy as well, which gives them that wee bit of buzz. And I think they just kind of took the kind of thoughts for Livingston, how well Livingston had done for a spell. St Johnstone have went and done that as well. And as I say, it's harsh on St Mirren, which we'll touch on soon. But as I say, I don't think, again, without the fans in that, I would imagine if it was, Rangers and Celtic going for the title, and Hibs and Aberdeen fighting for third, etc. I think they would rather have went to Love Street than going through to Perth and playing the pitch and whatnot. But it's a massive achievement for Callum Davidson in his first season. It really is. Probably manager of the year material, I would think, for a small provincial club to win a trophy and get in the top 6 in the last day. But hard lines to St Mirren, eh?
Definitely. Rory, what's your thoughts on your former club St Mirren missing out in the top 6 in the last 89th minute?
I was disappointed for them, to be fair. I took kind of 10 minutes last night thinking about that, because I'd listened to it on the radio on the way up the road and things, and hearing how they just missed out by 2 goals, which is, if you're affiliated to St Mirren in any way, is heartbreaking. 2 goals is nothing. What will probably, which is quite a short-term view or a longer-term view in terms of next season, managers like Jim Goodwin are often judged on progression. So if St Mirren can go into the top 6 next season, that'll probably be seen as progression. So I'd have missed out this season. It's disappointing based on the circumstances around it. St Johnstone have been there and done it. I seen a tweet from St Johnstone the other day. I think that's 8 out of the last 10 seasons they finished top 6. So really, if they hadn't finished top 6 this season, probably it would have been viewed as a failure from Callum Davidson. Although it's a great achievement, if you're looking at that going, right, 7 out of the last 9 seasons, the previous managers finished top 6, really, that really isn't a carrot for me. That's an expectation for me. Whilst they're a smaller club within the division, they've showed that can be done, and they've got the nucleus of the players that have done it. So anything short of that probably would have seen Callum Davidson being questioned. So I think that it's disappointing for St Mirren. I think Jim Goodwin will be there next season. I think he'll add to the squad he's currently got, and I do believe that St Mirren will be in the top 6 over the next couple of seasons, probably next season. But well done to St Johnstone. Like I said, the run they've been on and since the new year has been great. And the league table doesn't lie after 33 games, whether it's 2 goals or 2 points or 20 points. After 33 games, that is enough evidence to suggest that the top 6 teams are the best top 6 teams in the country.
Do you think, Rory, in terms of, now, no disrespect to St Johnstone and St Mirren, Aberdeen are a bigger club? Do you think Aberdeen could be sniffing around Callum Davidson or Jim Goodwin? Or do you think Aberdeen see themselves above that level and going higher up the tree, looking for somebody with a wee bit more experience, a bigger name?
It's an interesting one, because I would place Jim Goodwin at an Aberdeen. I would say that's his next a natural step. And I asked myself in that hit, well, why? Because he's done nothing more than Callum Davidson done. Arguably, Callum Davidson's done more. So I don't know whether it's been at Alloa and having the success he had there, but Jim Goodwin, I think, has got a bright future in the game. For me, Callum Davidson as well, winning that trophy is in top 6 and finishing the top 6. I do believe, if Rangers go unbeaten during the season, it's very, very difficult to argue with Gerrard being manager of the season. But depending on the outcome of the Scottish Cup, there's nothing to suggest why Callum Davidson, if he has a good run at that, wouldn't he be manager of the season? But answering your question, I personally think Aberdeen as a club will be looking at a bigger name than that, or more further afield than within the division, potentially this time around. Might be a Stephen Glass or someone of that ilk. I don't think Goodwin or Davidson have probably done enough to this point yet, but I think they've both got bright futures in the game. You know, I think Goodwin will do really, really well. Davidson as well, having worked with him for 2 weeks when I was on trial, came across really well. So I don't think our time is now, but moving forward in Aberdeen or Hibs or Hearts, that would be the next natural step for these guys. And certainly they're going the right way about it to try and achieve that.
Definitely. 2 more results over the weekend. Livingston drew 1-1 with Hibs, and United won 1-0 against Aberdeen. We've got a question about Aberdeen later on in the show. We're touching the fan questions, but we'll move on to some quick-fire questions. Obviously, this week we've no special guests, so I've decided to put Wilson in the spot with some quick-fire questions. Now, these are a mixture of kind of, obviously we do the golf show, horse racing, a mixture of a couple of trivia questions, and then we'll bring in some of your classic Wilson kind of questions. We'll start off with, first of all, Celtic or Rangers?
Celtic.
How many goals did Greg Stewart score for Kilmarnock?
Oh, 9.
Unlucky. 8. Can you name 3 race horses who won at this week's Cheltenham Festival?
No. sorry. I used to be quite a big fan of Cheltenham. An old boss of mine, thankfully she probably won't be tuning in and lives in Australia, used to always query why I had always a week off with the flu in March. So I used to be quite, I wouldn't say I was into it, always just like a wee bit on Cheltenham. But no, sorry, I haven't tuned in much this week. Apologies, Scott.
Rory, do you want to have a wee go any race horses?
It's funny you say that. When I was at St Mirren and a couple of other clubs, the boys were big into it, and Willow Flood used to give the boys the tips, and they used to filter through it myself and other people, and I actually won a bit of money one year, but the bookies soon won that back the following year. So since then, I've no bothered with it. I'm no big into the horses, so I wouldn't be able to mention any of the winners for this week. I do apologise.
Brilliant. Few following questions. You could pick a dream 4-ball to play golf with. Who would it be, Mark?
From professional golfers or just from anybody?
Anybody.
Well, Johnny Sinclair is my partner at the golf, so he would be number 1, absolutely. And we would like to play against, I think we'd hold our own against probably Tiger and Rory McIlroy. I think we'd have a chance at beating them up at Loudon.
Brilliant. Mark Roberts or Julia Roberts?
Oh, Mark Roberts, undoubtedly. He's a beautiful human being with those teeth. Did he win at Cheltenham this week, by the way?
Favourite Kilmarnock player of all time?
Oh, gee whiz. It would honestly be impossible to split them. Now, a wee bit different between sometimes you have a favourite player and maybe the best player. I'd have to say my favourite player was David Bacon, absolutely, 100%. But the best player was probably Tommy Burns and Ian Durrant.
Favourite Kilmarnock under-19s player of all time?
Oh, Stephen Naismith, without a shadow of a doubt. He was smashing guy to work with. Great pro, lovely fella.
Shocking.
Favourite Kilmarnock moment of all time?
The Cup in '97. Absolutely. The Cup in '97. And it wasn't, again, it's one of these cup finals, 50,000 folk, and very, very uneventful. But it was the whole thing for about 3 or 4 days after it. Like everyone goes on about the scenes in John Finney Street and to be standing there with the fans, and what was great. But even after that, you went into that was the Saturday, the Sunday, the town, was absolutely jumping. You went into the pub maybe for a quick pint on the Wednesday afternoon, and the place was still jumping. Every pub was absolutely mobbed. So it was the whole experience. The game wasn't great. Also remember through Easter Road to stay up, and we drew 0-0 with Hibs, and it was the old terracing behind the goal, and with massive support up there that day. That was a great experience as well.
What was it like in Kilmarnock when you stayed up through the playoffs? Was it more relief within the town, or was it a celebration?
I think it was a bit of both, because it was a lovely hot summer's day, and I think Falkirk won 1-0 on the Thursday. Was it the Thursday to the Sunday? And a big crowd and all that. But again, sometimes think when it was a summer's day, a sunny afternoon, there was lots of kids at the game and lots of families and all that. So I actually wasn't in any of the boozers that day. But as I say, I think it was more a sense of relief.
And it's a bit of a strange one, the old playoffs.
And we knew change was coming, because the first one was Jimmy Calderwood. So we knew change was coming. So there was a wee bit of kind of apprehension that, but it was definitely more relief than celebration, absolutely.
Brilliant. Kelly Pie or Black Rooster?
See, I'll be relying on it has to be for Fraser Gall's benefit. It's a Kelly Pie, absolutely. Fraser Gall's a good pal of mine.
Mark Shankland or Lawrence Shankland?
100% Lawrence Shankland. 100%. Although I need him to start scoring goals for the Euros. I need him to start scoring some goals. I haven't seen Mark play this season.
Who would you have in the Euro squad, Wilson? Would you have Shankland or Nisbet if you had to pick one?
Scott could probably do a full show on this, and the Euros.
I've actually got a question about this later on. But
all right, we'll come back to it, Rory, if that's okay. If I'll let me think about it.
Brilliant. Final question.
Because I can't separate them.
It's hard.
I can.
Final question. What championship ground are you looking forward to visiting next season?
Oh, go away with yourself. I'm not a Ross County supporter, so I'll not be going to any championship grounds. Although some of the best days of watching Kelly were at places like Firhill, Somerset, Carpolo. They were tremendous days. But no, it's not for us this season. Absolutely not. But it would be Firhill. Used to love games against Partick.
Brilliant. We've got some
terrible.
Do you know what?
I know, but there was a kind of old rivalry there as such, because we were never in the same league as Ayr for a long time, so it was Partick for a bit. So there were good rivalries there.
Brilliant. But we've got some fan questions as well. And this is one I want to put to Rory. This came from a friend of mine during the week when I was talking to him in the shop. He said, when did you first get the feeling under Paul Le Guen that it was going wrong?
There's probably two points. The results. You can't hide for results. They went to Motherwell one day. I think you beat 1-0, and they played really, really well. And that was kind of the story of Paul Le Guen. He came with good ideas. Did they suit the Scottish way? No, I don't think so. He came with an invested interest in youth players and bringing youth players through. That's fine. All his plans were longer term. At the Old Firm, you don't get long term if you're not winning games. So it's fine to have a vested interest in the youth team and bringing youth players through. It's fine to want to play a certain style of football. If you're 10 points behind Celtic at Christmas, you're not in a job. So I think the results I know
unless you're Neil Lennon.
Well, we spoke about this before, and we both agreed that he shouldn't have been in a job to when he was. So you're right. And to be honest, I can't quite remember how Rangers finished that season, but they brought Walter Smith in. They acted, they made a change, and it worked. It's yet to be seen whether Celtic's change will work, but I don't think there's any doubt they waited far too long to do it. So the results, and I think the dispute with Barry Ferguson, it's undoubted that it was well documented at the time. It was win or bust. I think that if the results are coming on the back of that dispute, people will back the manager naturally. If you're still losing games on the back of that dispute, there's going to be questions asked. What's going on internally? Why has there been a dispute? Why are players falling out with the manager? I don't think his style, neither on the pitch or how he tried to implement things off the pitch within Murray Park. He banned a lot of things, whether it be diluting juice, whether it be little things that we're just used to here in Scotland, or whether it was double training sessions, 5 hours apart with players sleeping around in the training ground. All these types of things. The idea and the science behind them was good, but it didn't really work over here. And I think if you're not backing that up with results, it's very hard to defend yourself when your players aren't happy, when the results aren't coming. I think there was a magnitude of things. I think he had a lot of good ideas, but I just don't think he was suited to Scottish football at all.
What amazed me at the time, now, again, Rory, you're more qualified than us to talk about this. And every team in the world, there must be players that hate the manager. There must be, right? Now, if I'm the manager, right, of Rangers, and I've got Barry Ferguson at my disposal, 100% I may not like him, okay? But arguably probably the best player at the club at the time. So could you not just, right, Barry, you're playing centre midfield today, do what you do. So you don't have much dealing with him as such. But Barry Ferguson wasn't going to go out and throw a leg in because he's a Rangers man, the Rangers captain. So I would be thinking, right, okay.
But what I would say is an example of, so that's fine to say that, right? So on the Monday you say that, you say, right, Barry Ferguson's going to be in my team on the Saturday, I'm going to let him do what he needs to do. On the Tuesday, and this was something which actually happened, I don't know if it was a Tuesday, but it happened. Phil Bardsley tackled somebody in training. Probably went didn't like physical contact in training, didn't like tackles, didn't like people mincing people in training, which in this country, that is a sign of, if you're 3-0 down in training, you smack somebody, that gets it, you know, that is kind of a culture. It sets the tone, exactly, and it's a culture within this country. So it's fine to say to Barry Ferguson, or tearing your head in on a Monday morning, right, Barry Ferguson's playing on Saturday, and I don't need to have much dealings with him because he's going to produce on a Saturday. But see, on a Tuesday, when you send somebody in for the training ground for tackling somebody, it causes ripples within the squad, and you like your Barry Fergusons who are like, what's that all about? Like, you can't tackle anymore. That kind of Scottish culture, which we need in our game. So it's fine to take the approach you're saying, but when you're trying to implement your other things on the back of that, which you're getting these guys' backs up, no communicating with them is fine, but it gets to a point where, for me, his culture, his background, his ethos, his philosophy, it just didn't fit the game. And you can take a back seat and play your best players, but if you don't want people tackling and training, your best players are going to have something to say about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Good play, aye?
Definitely agree with that. Wilson, what are your thoughts on Rangers and Celtic Colts possibly going into the League Two, and what would your solution be to that situation?
I mean, I don't know how it works in effect, but possibly, do you have the situation where, and you know, if there was more investment in the Colts teams as such, what happens if they're both fighting for the Championship to get promoted into the Premier League?
I would imagine it would be a similar thing to like the likes of Germany. It would just be they don't get promoted and the highest team outside of them gets promoted.
Right, so then you've got a wee bit of a scenario. And don't get me wrong, I love the playoffs in England and for the Championship to go to the Premiership, where you can finish 6th and still get promoted, you know, via the playoffs. And I feel like if you had, you know, the Championship, Rangers Colts won it by 90 points, Celtic Colts 88 points, Falkirk 36 points, and they get promoted. It doesn't ring true how it would all work, to be honest. I genuinely, and I'm old fashioned, but I genuinely believe Scottish football should go back to the first teams and reserve team football, where maybe the pros that don't play on a Saturday have to play with the reserves on a Monday or a Wednesday night, whatever it may be, and try and develop players that way. You know, if you go back and speak to, you know, maybe just before kind of Rory's time, you know, I remember my mates that played with Kilmarnock at the time, like Marco and that, although Marco says he never played any reserve games, he was always first team. But I remember my mates saying, oh, we're playing Celtic today. All right, okay. And then they phone you tonight, say, how'd you get on? Oh, we get beat 3-0. Paul Lambert was playing, Craig Burley was playing, Johan Mjalby was playing. And these are 16, 17-year-old kids getting to play, you know, like I said, these guys, I just, there's obviously a benefit to Celtic and Rangers. But what does slightly worry me about is, see all these guys in the Colts team, how many of them get to play first team for Rangers or Celtic? Now, I know they don't have lots and lots of money to spend as previous years, but for example, if Rangers had the money that they used to have, for example, and Tavernier get injured as he did this season, do you think they'd have thrown Nathan Patterson in, or would have went out and signed somebody for a couple of £2-3 million? So I don't see many guys progressing from the Colts teams into the old firm first team. Okay, it may give them experience, but I don't see there's any harm in going and loan to Partick or Airdrie or Livingston, wherever they want to go. But I would need to see the kind of the structure of it, etc. And I know Barcelona and Real Madrid have it in Spain, and as you said, Scott, about Germany. But nah, it's a no from me. From what I know about it, maybe I'm a bit uneducated on it, but it'd be a no from me.
Rory, what's your thoughts on
it? It's difficult for me to add much to that. I agree with absolutely everything that Wilson's just said there. I think to pick up on his first point, it's almost similar to if Sparta Prague get put out of Europe this year, which they should be, and you went to the Rangers squad and said, right, either Arsenal get a bye or you go through. I think as professional footballers, you'd be looking at it going, no, well, there's something no right about us getting beat over the two ties by the better team and then being put through. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like we deserve to go through. And I think it would be the same if the Colts team finish first in the Championship and you get promoted, Falkirk promoted, or whoever it may be. It's a little bit. This just doesn't feel right, and I don't think it would feel right within a dressing room either, celebrating finishing second and getting promoted. And to touch on his second point, I wouldn't agree that it is before my time. I played against your Paul Lamberts. I played. If you're a first team manager,
I'm trying to let you away with one, Rory.
Well, if I want to put some perspective on it, if I'm Jim Jeffries and I'm watching Rory Loy playing in a reserve game on a Monday night in front of 3,000 people at Rugby Park in a stadium against Paul Lambert, Stephen McManus, and 5-6 other first team fringe players of Celtic, and I play well, and it comes to a Saturday afternoon. Right, do we put Rory on the bench? Do we know? Well, we can put him on the bench because he's went and he's done it at a very good level. You're watching Rory Loy playing in League One against Cowdenbeath on a Saturday afternoon, and he does fine. Does that mean you can go in and play against or be on the bench against Hibs on a Saturday? No, I don't think it does. Mm-hmm. And I think the gap needs to be bridged between what is now a development squad and a first team squad. There needs to be an in-between, and I 100% agree with Wilson. We need to get back to a reserve team. We need to get back between a mixture of men and boys that are ready to become men, and they need to go and improve that on a stage which doesn't have the manager's job on it, which doesn't have points riding on it. It's to go in and say, right, can you play against him? Can you play well enough that when it comes to Saturday, I'm going to trust you to go in and play? So I really just adding to what Wilson says there.
And what happens? I mean, I know in a cup competition, Rangers play Rangers Colts.
It doesn't work for me, and I know that in the continent it does work at times. I don't know the ins and outs how it works in the continent, but for me it just wouldn't work. What is your motivation as a Rangers player going out and playing against Alloa? Is it right if I play well enough today, I'm going to get in Rangers first? No, you're not going to get in Rangers first team by playing well against Alloa. You're going to need to do it at some point within the club, and you're going to need to do it at a level where you're playing in front of fans, where you're playing in front of first team players who are at the level where you're going to need to be picked at, so that you're not getting 10, 15 minutes here and there. It's going to need to be on a stage where there's a crowd there, you're playing against first team players, so that trust is the biggest thing. See, in football, if a manager trusts you, your tricky wingers will play the odd game at certain clubs, but when it comes to the big games, when it comes to the crunch time, who can I hang my hat on? In development games, are they enough for managers to turn around and go, I can hang my hat on him? And whereas my day, when you were playing against these guys and you were playing against 3,000 people, it might not be enough to go, I can 100% trust him, but it's enough to go, do you know what? He's shown enough that he's not going to make me look stupid, or he's not going to do so badly that it's going to make me look ridiculous. So the gap needs to be bridged between a development squad and a first team squad, and I 100% agree with Wilson. Reserves needs to be introduced, and first team players and youth team players need to be integrated more. And that is really when you cut your teeth. That's when boys become men and go, right, he's got the ability, has he got the mentality? And that's when players really are ready for the first team, when they show that they can handle it.
Yeah.
From the current old firm squads, again, we spoke about Nathan Patterson. Is he the only one in the Rangers squad that's kind of come through the development at Rangers? Is there anybody else that's a regular?
Glenn Middleton's flirted with it. He's done well in a few European games. He's now went out and loaned to St Johnstone. If he does well at St Johnstone, you can go and come back and say, well, scored 6 goals for St Johnstone as a midfielder. We finished in the top 6. We won a cup. I played every game. For me, that's enough grounds to come and go, right, I should be at least getting a fair crack of the whip. But you're right. Other than that, it's difficult to.
And I look at, I'm looking at Celtic, and you've got the boy Welsh that's come in this season. You've got James Forrest. But
see that
there's
game
not
against
that many
Hibs
that come from the youth right into that kind of old firm first team. And as I say, no offence to Glenn Middleton, I'm sure he's a very, very talented player. But if Rangers are going out for the new season, they're going to be in the Champions League. Is Steven Gerrard going to say, I could do with another player? Am I going to just promote Glenn Middleton, or am I going to go and sign somebody?
Aye, absolutely. And see, it kind of backs up what we're both saying here, right? They're in the League One, for example, and a player has a really good season. For me, Steven Gerrard's went and signed Greg Stewart. He's went and signed Scott Wright. He's went and signed Glenn Kamara. He's signing the best within the division. So if you can prove you can do it at that level, then you stand a chance of, flicking a switch in the manager's head to go, this guy's ready. For me, if Rangers Colts were in League One, Steven Gerrard's still going to sign Greg Stewart and Scott Wright. So what is the point in it? Because these guys are playing for KILMARNOCK, and of the 8 goals you spoke about for Greg Stewart, I bet you about 6 of them were absolute worldies because he's got that in him. But
all 8 were worldies.
Aye, they're going to go and sign these guys over players who are playing in League One or League Two. For me, it's a point. It's not a pointless exercise. It's good exposure for the younger boys, and it does give them experiences within the game. But in terms of fast tracking to the first team, playing League Two and League One, it's just not going to cut their teeth enough to go and play in Rangers first team.
And as you said, if Kelly were playing Rangers on a Monday night at 7:30, and you thought, right, okay, Greg Stewart, Scott Wright, Morales didn't play on Saturday for Rangers, they might play Monday, you would go and watch the game. Do you know what I mean? Whereas you're thinking, I think they play the games like a Monday afternoon at 2:00 when the whole world's at work. So nobody goes and watches them anyway.
And they'll not be played in Rugby Park these days, I wouldn't imagine.
No, definitely.
Definitely not. We'll touch on something else as well. Rory, do you think Stephen Glass could be a good fit for the Aberdeen job?
It's difficult for me to pass judgment to Stephen Glass. I mean, I played with him at Dunfermline for 7 months. Great guy, good player. Never been, I've no experience of being coached by Stephen Glass or being in sessions that have been ran by Stephen Glass. Is it a bit left field? Is it a bit different? I think it is. Does he have a connection to the club? Has he went and coached in different countries? I think there's potential there. What I would say is that if you are going to appoint a Stephen Glass, that is the type of appointment that means that if Aberdeen are sitting 5th in the table next year and only playing how the fans want them to be, you need to stick with them. If you're going to sign Stephen Glass, there needs to be a message to, right, this is a long-term goal. He needs time to implement. Just as young players, we talk about young players coming into a team, Nathan Patterson's, Stephen Glass needs to be able to be given time within management and to set his own ways up, and it might not work overnight. So that type of appointment, like say Tommy Wrights, they come in for a quick fix, they know what they're doing, you expect instant results. For Stephen Glass, Derek McInnes has finished 3rd for I don't know how many years, 2nd, 3rd, whatever it may be, best of the rest, call it what you like. So I think if Stephen Glass comes in and falls short of that, it can't be a case of sack Stephen Glass. It needs to be a case of, right, we made this appointment with a long-term goal because Derek McInnes' way of playing had ran dry and we weren't happy with it anymore. And as Aberdeen, we want to be able to play a nice brand of football. So I don't know enough about him to pass comment on whether he would be a good appointment or not. But what I would say is it can't be an appointment which lasts 3 months and then he's sacked, or 6 months or a year. He needs to be given longevity to be able to implement his own ideas. Obviously, there comes a point, if he's sitting 10th in the table and they're flirting with relegation, that's a different argument. However, if he's 5th, 6th in his first season, you need to be able to be prepared to accept that and go, right, we've appointed him with a long-term plan, no just an overnight fix. So it'd be a nice one. It'd be a nice one to see. And Wilson's touched on before the manager merry-go-round. It bucks the trend. So it'd be nice to see, I think.
I would like David Robertson to get it.
Ex-Dundee United, St Johnstone?
No, the ex-Aberdeen, Rangers, Leeds player. The guy that's in India. I think the programme he did in India looked absolutely amazing. Somebody like that, with maybe somebody senior beside him as such, on a wee bit more experience. I would like to go down the route of an Aberdeen player as such. But
David Robertson and Jerry McCabe?
Well, possibly, aye. Jerry McCabe, very good at the Scottish Cup winner at Kilmarnock. So again, as you say, buck the trend for me. And as I say, I was a wee bit like that with the Kilmarnock job. Buck the trend and try and get something a wee bit different. But you kind of mentioned a point there about, what would Stephen Glass implement as a player. How long does it take for a new manager coming in? And have you been in the situation where a new manager comes in and tries to implement, their philosophy, their style, and how long it actually takes?
I think it depends on.
We obviously spoke about Paul Le Guen, and he's maybe implementing too much change at the time.
Yeah, and I think
at the end of the day, if I was a manager and they were winning games and they ate steak pie and chips 4 times a day, I wouldn't care. They were winning games. So how long does it take a manager to come in and say, for example, last season at whatever one of your teams, you played 4-4-2, you played right in midfield, you played 38 games, but you maybe get relegated, they didn't finish well, a new manager comes in and wants to change it. How long does that change take to implement?
Well, I mean, the scenario you put there is a manager coming into a team which is unsuccessful. I think it's easier to come in and try and implement your own ideas in a team which isn't doing well, because something clearly has to change. I think it's important to go about things subtly. You need to get buy-in as a person before you can get buy-in as a coach. People need to buy into your beliefs, the way you handle, the way you treat people, the way you talk to people, the way you conduct yourself. And I think that's important. And I think that takes time. That doesn't happen overnight. That comes, that takes, I don't want to say years, but that takes months for people to go, this guy's a decent guy. He knows what he's talking about. I trust him. He treats people well. He's a nice guy. And all the things that come on the back of that, he's able to chin players when they're not doing well enough, but do it in a way which is constructive. And he's also able to give praise when it's due, that type of idea. And then on the back of that, you then need to build your style of play, the things that you want to implement in and around the club, whether that be something minute like diluting juice in the canteen, whether that be something major like, right, we're going to overhaul the whole ethos of the club, which has been here for the last 6 years, which under Derek McInnes, which was a model of consistency. Don't always play great football, but we finish as high as possible. So I think you need to get buy-in, and then I think on the back of the buy-in, you need to get your way of working in once you've got the buy-in. So I would say minimum 6 months. If it's taking longer than that, maybe you're having to look at the way you're doing things, and maybe you're needing to change the way you do things. But I think at least 6 months to a year, and this is what I'm saying with Stephen Glass in his first role as manager. If he starts next season, if it comes to January, February time, and they are 5th or 6th, for me, those 5 or 6 months have been crucial in implementing the buy-in and implementing the way he wants to play. So you need to give him another year. You need to give him those 4 months. You can't go, you're 6th, it's no good enough, you're sacked. It needs to be, right, this is a long-term plan, as I said. And long-term in football isn't long-term in life. Long-term is two seasons. We know you talk about long-term plans in my work. You're looking at where we will be this time next year or this time in 18 months. That's no football. It's season upon season. So I would say 6 months at a minimum. So if Aberdeen do appoint somebody from left field, but I think the expectations come if you appoint somebody who's been in the league and done it before. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but if you do point that, you maybe get 2 or 3 months. But Neil Lennon, let's take Neil Lennon. If you appoint him, you don't get 6-7 months because you don't come with the idea that you need to get the buy-in, etc. So I think if it was somebody from left field, a Stephen Glass, I think you need, if it does get to your January, February, and they are cut adrift and they're not where they should be in terms of league position, it's important that you go, right, we're back here, we're going to back you. Let's look at things this time next year. If we're still 5th or 6th, then it needs reviewed. It doesn't need reviewed because Aberdeen fans have got bed sheets up saying get Stephen Glass out. I don't, on social media and all the rest of it. I think if you're going to do it, you need to have the balls to turn around and go, no, we appointed him, and it was a 2-year plan, and we're going to stick with it. So, these guys, you want everybody to be successful. You don't want to see anyone lose their job. So hopefully he can come in and do a good job if he is the man to take Aberdeen forward. But if he's not, in the short term, let's judge him in the long term, not the short term.
Yeah, definitely. Time for a few more questions. Wilson, what's your thoughts on United appointing David Hopkins, and is it too late to nick a promotion playoff spot?
I mean, he started very well, hasn't he? No, not that league's a funny league. I was listening to the radio yesterday. I think it was Inverness they were talking about, and they were obviously giving Billy Dodds it tight because obviously for Radio Scotland went there. They said it was I forget the exact stat, but there were something like I think they were 8th or 9th, they were 4 points off 4th. So again, I think that league's a wee bit like the SPL's been. I think everyone's capable of beating everybody else. So no, I don't think it's too late. But again, if he's successful, immediately and they slightly miss out, then they'll say it's too late. But he had a good record. Was it Livingston? And he was at first. He had a decent record and get a move down south.
Livingston and
promoted.
Yeah.
So bit of a decent track record. But I can't see them. Even if they made the playoffs, I can't see them getting promoted.
Yeah, definitely. Rory, what's your thoughts on Mohamed El Yunusi? Should Celtic try and get him permanently next season?
He's one of these players that people talk about stats, people talk about numbers these days, is how they put it. You look at Ryan Kent, he talks about numbers. He has an impact on a game, but how's his numbers? I think if you look at El Yunusi, he'll probably be the opposite. He probably has got good numbers, but does he really impact a game? I'm not sure. Like, for me, if you're scoring on an Old Firm derby, he's getting subbed today, and I think that kind of sums up El Yunusi. I think he's good for a goal, and he shows moments of unbelievable quality. There was a touch he had the day where it was rattled into Edward. Edward steps over it, goes through his legs, and he just kills the ball for Edward. And it's the McGregor one where he saves it with he's in between his legs. A great touch, really, really good touch. Showed a lot of finesse and a lot of quality there, but doesn't show it consistently. I think as a Celtic, I would be tempted to say yes, try and make it permanent, because I think if you can get that consistency out of him, then he's a top player. But like many of these types of players who do possess good quality, they go missing in games, and he's guilty of that. So what I would say is that if I was Celtic, I would be getting him, but I wouldn't be pushing the boat out to get him. I would be happy if I got him, but I wouldn't be going and putting all my eggs in his basket.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Final question. We'll fit this into our preview for the upcoming games this week. What were your notable thoughts on the Scotland squad, and who would you bring in if you had the chance? And what are your thoughts on Scotland in the next 3 games? We'll start with Wilson. What's your thoughts on the squad that was announced during the week? Again,
that the right back, the centre halves, and the strikers are a massive worry. I think Steve Clarke will stay loyal to the guys that have got him to the Euros. As I say, and again, you're not in the position, probably never will be, but you've got a natural young Scottish right back in Nathan Patterson, who has played now in an Old Firm game. He has played European football. He's come in and he's done well. He's done reasonably well. And so why, if it was me, you would either take O'Donnell or Palmer and Nathan Patterson and let this kid learn. Get him in and around the squad. Okay, if he's up for it, then throw him in. As Steven Gerrard has done at Rangers, throw him into big games and let's see. That would have been my omission. The centre half situation worries me greatly. I always think the boy Cooper does really, really well at Leeds, and then when I see him for Scotland, he's a bomb scare. I'm no great fan of. Yes, they do a job in the league. They're in like Gallagher's and McKenna's and that, but up against world-class strikers, I really fear the worst. I don't think Kieran Tierney should be moved into the centre half slot. I think he should play at left back. And as I say, you're starting to move.
Where would you play Robertson?
Tell you what, this season I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But if Scotland are going to be under pressure against the likes of Croatia and England in the big games. Kieran Tierney defensively is a better defender than Andy Robertson. Okay? In my opinion. Again, I know every single Rangers fan will be phoning in the show saying Robertson's better, but in my opinion, defending the game, Kieran Tierney's better than Andy Robertson. If, depending on what shape we play, Tierney could play left of a 3 and Robertson at wing back. That's been tried a couple of times. But as I say, and then in the striker positions, I mean, I saw Chris Wilder was sacked this week, and they should have been sacked for paying 20 million for Ollie McBurney. I actually thought one of the games, I forget one, it was one of the ones at Hampden, and he played kind of up in a 2. And I thought, yeah, that's actually a wee something there. I can see a wee something there. But watching Sheffield United games this season, and most times he's in a Scotland jersey, he's been horrific.
Would you think of Che Adams, or does Che Adams go straight in, considering how well he's been doing this season at Southampton?
I mean, again, I know Lyndon Dykes, I know he scored at the weekend, or last midweek. Was it midweek he scored?
I think he scored yesterday.
I think Lee Wallace assisted the goal trail. I still think he'll go with tried and tested. I still think he'll go with Dykes and up front on his own. The Che Adams one, I'm kind of undecided. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You know, if they found out last week that he had a Scottish granny or whatever it is, then go and ask him. But I think Steve Clarke's been chasing him for a couple of years, or since he got in the job. Now all of a sudden we're at the Euros, we're going to play Croatia and England. He wants to play now. And I think the guys that I've got is there, do they deserve the chance, or do you go with your best team? It's probably an age-old argument. But Che Adams is better than any other striker that we have. You know, and maybe a link-up play with Stuart Armstrong that they do at Southampton at club level, you know, might be key. But as I say, I genuinely thought, like, if you'd asked me this question when Scotland qualified for the Euros, I was genuinely hoping from a massive season out of Lee Griffiths, and even a massive season out of Stephen Naismith. You know, I know it was first division, but a massive season from those guys, because I still think those two are better than Burke, McBurney, you know, Dykes. These guys, I still think they're much better, but we are really short. Now, we don't have an Ali McCoist that's going to come on and play and score a hat-trick and score goals. One goal's going to be enough. But as I say, I really fear in the right. I mean, again, if it was O'Donnell and Palmer, I would play O'Donnell every day of the week. I don't think that Palmer's showed me anything to think that he could be Scotland's right back. I thought Billy Gilmour would have benefited from being in the squad, but if he's not picking Turnbull based on his inexperience as such, then Billy Gilmour falls into that category as well. Definitely two for the future. But I would maybe just have stuck them in the squad just to try and get that experience, because there's still a wee bit to go for the end of the season. You know, if one of the regulars like Ryan Jack, Cal McGregor, Armstrong, you know, McGinn, these guys get injured, you know, then there's spaces there.
Rory, what's your thoughts as well? You obviously spoke about earlier Nisbet and Shankland. Like, what was your thoughts when you heard Kevin Nisbet was going into the squad?
It was an interesting one. Steve Clarke seems to have showed, you know, Wilson touched on it, loyalty throughout the squad. You know, the bulk of the squad has been the same throughout. Obviously, the addition of Che Adams, but the only real major change there is swapping in Nisbet for Shankland. I think Nisbet has shown that he can play outside on the left or the right as well and still give good quality. And I don't know if that's maybe played a part in terms of being able to play, you know, if Scotland need to change their shape, if they need somebody who positionally is astute to play out on the right, but we still need two strikers on the pitch. I don't know if that's played a part in his thinking. Nathan Patterson, I would absolutely have in the squad 100%. Every young player at that age is going to go through a dip. They're not going to play consistently well for a period of time. The thing I would ask myself is, do we want to go to these Euros and no embarrass ourselves in terms of playing your O'Donnells who are going to be fine? Do we want to go and lose every game 1-0, 2-1 and be okay? Or do we want to take a wee chance and go, do you know what? We'll start O'Donnell, but what we're going to do is we're going to take Patterson and see if we're 1-0 down. We're going to throw Patterson on because he's going to give us more attacking threat. For me, O'Donnell and Palmer, it's like taking two clones. They're the same player. They're big, they're strong, they're robotic. They can do a job, great, and they've served the country unbelievably well to get to where we are. Why you would have two of the same player in the same squad, I don't know. I agree with Wilson as well. For me, I would have O'Donnell before Palmer, but they're very similar players. They're not going to set the world alight. Patterson, you just never know. He's going to go through a dip at some point. He's a young player, but he's riding the crest of a wave, is how I would describe it. And see if that wave takes him into the summer, then let him ride it as long as he can and make him part of the squad. Because I want to go to the Euros, and I would rather get scudded 4-0 every single game in the hope that we might just nick something and go through, than just accept mediocre. And I think that these players need to be involved for us to have any chance of going through. I really do. So I would have Patterson in the squad. Turnbull, for me, is a victim of his position. I think there's other players there who, in my opinion, are better than him at the moment, and are quite rightly in the squad. Nisbet, I think, he will need to do the business on the pitch for 2 or 3 games to get picked ahead of Shankland. I think it's very much, let's see what he can do in training, let's see what he can do in the games and the minutes he gets, and I'll make my decision from there. I still think Shankland has the nod at the moment. I think the onus is very much on Nisbet to go in and disprove that theory and go, no, pick me, as opposed to Nisbet being in this squad currently ahead of Shankland. So, look, we've got the players we've got. I would like to see a few risks taken. Yes, by all means, start O'Donnell, have Patterson on the bench, bring him on if it's not going well. Che Adams as well for me. And you talk about Liam Cooper. I played with Coops at Carlisle. He's a ball-playing centre-half. He fits into the ethos that is Leeds United. Yeah. He fits into Bielsa's way of playing. You can roll the ball out to him. You can play it. You can pop it around. And he fits into that. That's not how Scotland play. And I think that's why he shows up as being mediocre with Scotland at times, because he's not an out-and-out defender. He's not going to put his neck on the line. He's going to be found wanting with continuous balls into the box. But Leeds have got 2 athletic fullbacks. They've got ball-playing centre-backs. And he just fits the mould nicely. And he's a character within the dressing room, and that's why he's the captain. For me, the most pivotal player, in my opinion, I would be building my team around Scott McTominay in the base of the midfield. For me, at the moment, he is outstanding in a Man United team who is competing at a good level at the moment. He's outstanding at the highest level.
Not in the FA Cup today, right enough.
Did they get beat?
Beat 3-1,
But for me, over the course of the season, he's performing well in Manchester.
100%.
Getting the man of the match. He's big, he's physical, he's got no fear. He's in people's faces. He gets the ball, he's composed, which we're lacking at international level. Get him in the squad, get him at the base of the midfield, get him screening, and he's also good for a goal.
Big boy.
For me, I would be tempted to say, look, give Tierney the nod, give McTominay the armband, and see how it goes in the next few qualifiers and go from there. But that is going to upset and possibly rock the boat ahead of the Euros, so I don't think he'll want to do that. But if for me, if I was picking my absolute best team based on positions over the next couple of games for the qualifiers, I would have Tierney at left back, I would have McTominay at the base of the midfield with the captain's armband on.
Do you think, I'm just going touching on the right back situation, do you think, see if Scotland had, but probably before your time, like Alex McLeish and Willie Miller or Richard Gough as the centre half, then they would be able to pull a young boy like Patterson through the game? You know, whereas I don't think we have any sort of leader. I don't
know that era well enough, but I would imagine if you look further up the pitch, you've also got game changers in that team, which we probably don't have at the moment. So
no, but I'm just saying for the centre. So even if the current midfield and strikers, if we had, and I know it's before your time, if we had like Alex McLeish and Willie Miller or Richard Gough in there, would they be able to get a 17, 18, 19-year-old fullback through the game at that level? Because they're looking at a young fullback. We don't have the ability to centre half to go and cover or go and help them or do anything because they're no great. You know, they're no great at all. And that's where I wonder, is that what Steve Clarke's thinking? You know, because he was a fullback. Is he thinking, well, when I first started out, I had guys at St Mirren or Chelsea that were seasoned pros that could do X, Y and Z and made me a player. But I can't see a Declan Gallagher, a McKenna, you know, being able to do that.
Aye, possibly. I mean, it kind of touches on the argument we had earlier. You look at Connor Goldson today. He couldn't talk Balogun through the game. Balogun was having a torrid positionally. He was getting caught out. He was balls over the top. It was balls in behind. It was balls down the side. They were exposing him. Goldson couldn't get him through the game. Goldson's an experienced player. He's played a lot of games in Old Firm. I know he's not a Richard Gough, and I know he's not the ilk of these types of players we're talking about, but that's an example of it. Then you bring on a natural-sided right-back, and Goldson then becomes more comfortable. So, no, I don't think we've got the centre-backs, but at the moment, with the way Patterson's looking, he's shown no fear. He's shown that little bit of, there's no expectations on him. He's got the freedom of the world to go out and have a bad game and everyone say, well, he's young. So throw him in. throw him in, and no ahead of O'Donnell necessarily, but if we're one down with 25 minutes to play, throw him on. He's going to get to the byline more than O'Donnell. For me, he's going to deliver more quality into the box than O'Donnell. He might be more suspect defensively, which I'm kind of assuming, because based on his performances, he doesn't certainly look it. I would be taking him, and I would be saying, look, he doesn't look like he needs support at the moment. It's probably a step up in level in terms of the international scene. Throw him in. See if it doesn't produce. What are we actually expecting for the Euros anyway? We're happy to be there. So throw him in. Leave Liam Palmer at home.
Semi-finals, I would think. Semis, maybe quarters.
Absolutely. So Patterson 1-0, semi-finals. Let's do it.
Next week we're going to look at we're going to actually get the boys to pick their 23-man squad for the European Championships, but we're going to just have a quick prediction for the next 3 games. A crunch game against Austria to start off with on Thursday night at Hampden, away to Israel on Sunday, and then a home tie against the Faroe Islands on Wednesday night. Rory, how many points do you think Scotland will pick up in those 3 games in the next week?
The middle fixture is what, sorry?
Away to Israel.
And away to Faroes last game?
Home to Austria, away to Israel, home to Faroes.
So I think that we would be looking for 7 points out of those fixtures, given that we're home to Austria. However, I would go, I'll say 7 points. I'll say we'll draw with Austria at home. I think we'll beat Austria at home, we'll draw with Israel away, and we'll beat the Faroe Islands. So 7 points out of 9, get us off to a good start, put us in a good position, and build on that from there. Scotland usually do it the hard way. So if you were asking me for a prediction, what they'll probably do is get scudded off Austria, go to Israel and win. So we'll wait and see how it goes. But I think 2 wins and a draw would be great. Would build the confidence, and like I said, get Scott McTominay in that midfield and getting the captain's armband on.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think 7 points. I think Austria's a hard game. It's probably the 2. Denmark are probably the best team in the group, and I think Scotland and Austria are probably tied for second. Wilson, what is your thoughts? What is your predictions for the next 3 games Scotland have?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Although I would say it'll be a draw against Austria, beat Israel, beat the Faroes, 7 points.
Brilliant. But that will do us for this week's episode. I just want to thank Wilson and Rory for joining me on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure as always.
Thanks very much for having us on again. And hopefully Mark Shanklin can return and see us next week. Absolutely.
I know Shankers is having a good day. Hopefully his neighbours are getting to bed nice and early with any noise from next door.
Brilliant. We'll be back next week with, as we said, we're going to pick our 23-man squad for the European Championships. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. Please subscribe to SM Media and follow us on social media, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.